Hi, Abhimanyu. Welcome to our podcast. We are honored to have you here. I'm Veer Aditya from the Energy Club, and I'm in the Energy Department.
I'm Arya from Environmental Science and Engineering Department, and I am also part of Energy Club. So, to begin with, a very first question we can say, tell us a bit about yourself, your hobbies, your interests, or anything you'd like to share with us.
Yeah, thanks, Veer, and thanks, Arya, for having me. Yeah, I'm Abhimanyu Dhariwal. I think you can keep calling me Abhimanyu or Abhi, as folks prefer here in the US. I was in the Energy Science and Engineering Department at IIT Bombay from 2010 to 2015. I think we used to have 5-year programs back then. Um, and yeah, I have been working in the energy space for the last 9 years across Asia and now in the US, across consulting firms like Mckinsey, and then joined a energy startup called AutoGrid as well, and recently left to work on my own startup. And yeah, I guess my hobbies, I like watching sports. I follow Formula One, um, and I mean cricket sometimes. I play tennis, and yeah, I do also help out my wife with her business. So that keeps us busy on the weekends as well.
Okay, it is very nice to hear that. Even I like watching sports. Uh, Having said, you were a pass out of 2015 batch. Tell us a bit about your journey in the IIT Bombay and which clubs and teams you were part of. How was your experience there?
Yeah. I think I tried a lot of different things during my 5 years. Um, the the biggest thing for me was the solar decathlon competition and Team Shunya, which we started back in 2013 for the 2014 competition. So it was the first time we had participated, and we went to the finals in France. And since then, I know a lot of the juniors have, participated in multiple events, and most recently also won a lot of prizes, which is really heartwarming for me to see, because when we started, we were learning, and I mean, we performed really badly because it was the first time. But from being like, I think like second last in that first competition to I think being number two, I think, which were the Team Shunya achieved last year, was really a very proud feeling. Um, so that was like almost half of my 5 years at ID Bombay, the Solar Decathlon. Other than that, I was part of the internship cell. I was, in the hostel secretary at Hostel 3. Um, and yeah, I think those were the main things that I was focused on. I mean, the Energy Club was always there, helping out, events like Helios wherever I could. But yeah, my focus was always Solar Decathlon.
Okay, yeah, as you said, Team Shunya is really, really performing well these days. I mean, um, and to move forward, you had achieved a remarkable JE rank, and that was the first year energy program had launched. So, what was your motivation behind joining this branch, a very new branch, I would say, over other branches in other institutes?
No. So one correction, that was not the first year, it was the third year.
Oh,
So we
okay,
were the
pardon me.
third batch. That's fine. Of energy engineering, and yeah, it was, I guess, an interesting choice. With my rank, I could have got mechanical engineering, which I guess amongst the normal ranking of departments, I guess anyone would have chosen that.
Yeah, true.
Um, but I, for some reason, was not uh, particularly interested by, I guess, the conventional engineering majors. And I had spoken to a couple of seniors who had um, either joined energy or had done some electives in energy engineering. I also met some of the professors, including Rangan sir, when before choosing my or filling out my preference for the departments. And um, yeah, I guess took a leap of faith, but basically thought that okay, energy engineering sounded cool, and it's definitely related to the notion of there's going to be energy crisis in the world, so why not do something more specific and niche than do something generic. Um, and yeah, I mean, I guess I never had any regret. I remember filling out my forms, and my number one preference was energy, and then I put like the standard computer science, mechanical. You can call me stupid for doing that, but I guess I just was super focused at that time just to go for that. Yeah.
It is really, really great to hear this kind of perspective, which a very few people have these days. Um, After graduating, you worked at McKinsey. So, how was your experience there, and how it is helping you now in your startups or anything in your life generally?
Yeah. Well, as most people know, McKinsey is one of the best consulting firms, and um, it is best for a couple of reasons. One is that they always hire, really talented people, and from different backgrounds. You don't have always the same profile of people. You have people with very different backgrounds. You can have someone who has a doctor's degree and is doing consulting, somebody who was a lawyer, in addition to the standard profile of being like an engineer or an MBA graduate. So you learn a lot from the perspectives of different people. So I think that is one strong thing that stands out. And then McKinsey has a very good structure in place to train people to be more structured in their thoughts, to drive the conversation instead of being a listener. I mean, just being a listener, but also being able to like drive a conversation and be basically assertive in front of others, especially working with clients. So I think all of that uh, helped me a lot, I think, in my career, because it set the stage of being a more confident and assertive person, which you don't necessarily get through the education system that we I think have in India. Not you know I, for some reason I don't think that culture is created where everyone is like more open and more forward in terms of speaking up. Um, I think to get that in my professional career earlier in my career really set the stage for me to have that mindset. And I think that is definitely the main thing that I take away from being in McKinsey. Definitely, I got to work in the energy space also quite a bit through my time in McKinsey. So that also helped me get exposed to different topics and different people within the space. But I think the thing that keeps getting carried forward is, that structure and that um, assertion and confidence that I got being there.
Okay, we'll definitely keep this in mind when we'll go for our placements or something else like that. Now,
Yeah.
as you mentioned it in the talk earlier, you worked in the energy space also. So, what were the other startups or other work you did after leaving McKinsey?
Yeah. So maybe just a bit of highlight into also what I did in McKinsey that was related to the energy space.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
was part of the energy practice within McKinsey. So we worked a lot with the power utilities. So I worked with some of the larger some of the largest utilities in the US, helping them on different topics to improve their operations on the electrical distribution side of the value chain. We help them, some utilities, on digitizing their processes and their work, basically bringing a digital transformation strategy, and in a couple of places also helping them create digital products to help improve the operations. Like, for example, one of the utilities I was working with in New York, they used to run these energy efficiency programs, which were very paper based. So, a simple concept of figuring out how much energy efficiency is achieved by installing, let's say, a heat pump based air conditioning system. The calculations of how much energy savings that achieves, how much rebate can you get from installing that particular unit, what is the payback period, what is the ROI, all of these things were being done manually and paper based, and we basically created a digital tool for helping them automate that and basically do the calculations instantaneously so that they could close more sales quickly with prospective customers, and increase the amount of conversions they had in a particular year. So simple stuff, but adds a lot of value when you actually get to practical application. After McKinsey, I joined AutoGrid. AutoGrid essentially they have a software for managing the operations, or the supply demand balance within a grid. There's a term called DERs, which is distributed energy resources. So any distributed resource that can give power or take power can basically be used as a tool within the grid to do better balancing of the grid. Okay. So AutoGrid's platform essentially orchestrates that. And I was part of the sales engineering team. So my team's role was to basically drive more sales by using our technical expertise of the product and what value it can drive for our customers. So our customers used to be either utilities who wanted the software to tap into the power of these DERs to do better demand side management, or they would be market participants, because in the US there's a concept of open market. So aggregators can basically use DERs to make money in the energy market. So something like what you may have heard Tesla is doing in the energy market in Texas, using all the home batteries, something like that. Yes. Yeah, that's what I was working on until April of this year, and then since then I've been working on my own startup again in the energy space.
Okay. So as you mentioned, now you're working on your own startup, which is Electrifylt. Am I right?
Electrifylt, yeah.
Electrifylt, yeah. Could you please tell us a bit about the startup in a very small, brief explanation if you want?
Yeah. So the what we're trying to do right now is we're trying to create, we're trying to solve the problem of availability of charging stations for the commercial sector. So there are a number of reasons why it is not straightforward to install or get charging stations for a commercial entity. And what we're trying to do is we are trying to create a platform that aggregates charging station capacity from private depots that are lying unutilized. So we are seeing a trend where private depots have some level of unutilization of the chargers, either because their fleet is like working during the day, so the chargers are not being used, or they oversize the system anticipating future growth of their fleet, or they're waiting for EV production to pick up and bring those EVs to the ground. But for asset owners, it's very important for them to increase the utilization of the charging stations. So think of it something like an Airbnb for private chargers, where we basically aggregate unused chargers on these private depots and we make them available for private fleets, other private fleets to use them. So we basically have a technology stack that would convert these private depots into something that can be accessed and used for purposes by someone else, and basically have an app that would help fleets locate and use these chargers.
Okay, it is really nice to hear all of these um, concepts and terms, because these are very new in general and are very innovative, I would like to say. In the same startup, who are your current competitors, and how are you working differently on the startup or in the main theory?
Yeah. So essentially, what we are trying to provide is an alternative option to public charging and home charging for these fleets. So within this particular concept of, let's say, shared charging infrastructure, there are only a few players who are, trying to do something similar. There's a company called EV Match, which is doing a peer-to-peer
Okay.
kind of charger sharing. So it's more like if I have my home and I have my own charger and I'm trying to, rent it out to someone for a certain time of the day. But it's more like, from one individual to another individual. So we are different because we're doing it at a commercial scale. There are a couple of other companies who are, doing something similar, but they're not trying to make a technology platform, but they're more trying to do like a brokering platform where they're trying to broker a contract between a charger and a fleet vehicle to give them access to that charger. While we are focused more on creating a platform to make it available to all. And there's a company called SignUp, which basically provides a charging station management system. So they provide the software to manage the operations of charging stations for these private depots. And they're trying to create this similar concept using the depots where their software is deployed. So it's somewhat of a captive ecosystem that they have, but it's somewhat similar as well.
Okay. Okay. Over to you, Veer. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Arya.
Thank you, Arya. So, moving forward, you told us you have been working in the energy space for almost 9 years now. So, could you tell us about the obstacles faced by a company working in the energy sector?
Yeah, I guess it's a bit. I might be biased from my own perspective because I worked with specific type of companies, but I think doing a software business in the energy sector is still a bit tough because there's not enough penetration of let's say renewables or those kind of assets yet. I mean, it's definitely picking up. The growth has been great, but still it's not mainstream. And as much as you can get like early adoption with these technologies through like climate kind of mindset, there's only so much adoption you can get through that, both through consumers as well as business entities. At the end of the day, the economics also need to work. So I think like with technologies like solar, we have seen that happen over the years when the cost of manufacturing of solar went down, and like solar is now more mainstream. But like when you talk about technologies like electric vehicles, like they're still only certain categories like light commercial vehicles in the EV space probably have like cost parity. So a lot of the push right now is being driven by incentives and subsidies, and those pro-climate mindsets. But eventually, the economics also need to work. So I think those are some of the things that uh, create a bit of hiccup in the adoption of these technologies.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we've been hearing a lot of new terms from you and got great insights about the energy sector. Just to divert the topic a bit, could you share any funny incident from your college life or work?
Funny incident. Hmm. I have to think about this. It has to be funny, and it has to be also like relevant and safe for this podcast. So, um, yeah, I guess I don't know if I can call it funny, but I used to always find um, the rivalry between hostels a bit funny, a bit too made up, in my opinion. We used to have this water fights between like Hostel 3 and Hostel 4, and you know, then the entire army of freshers with some seniors would come and like throw water or color or balloons onto the other hostel. And yeah, I used to find it a bit funny and strange. I was never enthusiastic about any of those things. I used to stay away. Um, the same thing during Holi also. Like I used to like stay away from the hostels because it used to be pretty nasty the way everyone used to play Holi. So I used to run away and go home. And I don't know if you have this thing nowadays in the hostels, but birthdays used to be a nightmare too, because there used to be a lot of, let's say, not so fun stuff happening on somebody's birthday. Um, Probably it still happens. So yeah, those were funny things, but yeah, I used to run away from all of those.
Oh, definitely, those cultures are still there, and birthdays are still a nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, coming back to the topic, how is the EV industry changing, and what scope does it hold for uh, the new generation?
I mean, I'm no future fortune teller, but it definitely looks like um, EVs are here to stay, and you know, day by day, more people are warming up to it. Um, what we have seen is the biggest hurdle to EVs has been the cost and the charging infrastructure, um, and I think um, the charging infrastructure is definitely something that needs to be solved more proactively so that it removes all the anxiety related to adoption of EVs. With regards to cost, I'm pretty sure it's going to come down. Like with every other technology, like solar, it came down. People thought, oh, it's so expensive, but like China set the benchmark of how do you do large scale production and bring the cost down. Same thing is going to happen with EVs. I mean, China is already leading with that on the EVs front already. So I think that will happen. But the charging infrastructure is related to the land, and you can't produce more land. There's only enough. There's only so much land, and there's only so much upgrades you can do to the electric infrastructure, which in most places in the world is a very old and archaic system of putting like poles and wires. So it's not easy to upgrade them to. So I think the adoption of EVs uh, could hit, um, you know, a ceiling if the infrastructure problem is not solved, because there just won't be enough, capacity. So I think once we unlock those things, then probably the adoption will continue to grow.
So by when do you think this exponential growth will stop happening?
Well, I don't think it's on an exponential growth anymore. I mean, the general um, economics is at least, well, I guess it depends. Like, I may be a bit more biased by what I'm seeing in the US, but general, interest rates are pretty high, inflation is pretty high, so that's affecting the buying power of getting EVs, and so the sales are not growing as fast as they were before. It's slowing down a bit. I think it's not the same in India. I'm hearing that like two-wheelers and three-wheelers EVs is still a very good market
Yeah,
in India. So I think it depends on one geography to another, um, but and the state of like the grid in each country. So probably going to be a different story in different places.
true. Yeah, in India, the two-wheeler segment seems to be shifting towards EV, but the cars are still mostly running on gas itself. So, moving forward, what are your future plans with your startup and with life as well? What do you plan on doing forward?
Yeah, I mean, I left my job in the hope that I never have to go back to a job again. So fully focused on being an entrepreneur. Like I mentioned, my wife and I already used to run a business last 2.5 years. So we already had something entrepreneurial running. And now with my startup, I'm seeing it as a journey. It's not been straightforward. I mean, the idea that we have now, working on right now, is after almost 6 months of learning and pivoting. Uh, so I'm here for the journey, and yeah, hopefully, if this idea works, then hoping the next few years will be focused on this. But if not, I'm pretty sure there'll be another different idea that we would pivot to.
Sounds great. So, could you share something that you're proud of achieving in your journey till now?
Um, yeah, having having no regrets about whatever I did so far, whatever I achieved, professional journey, personal journey. Um, yeah, I think that is something to be proud of also, to have be satisfied and have no regrets and be excited for whatever lies ahead.
Yes, definitely. Having no regrets is a big achievement in life. Thank you, Abhimanyu, for answering all our questions in such detail and providing us such depth. Just like to end with one last question. Would you like to give any one last advice to the audience?
Who's the audience going to be?
Anyone interested in the energy field?
Got it. Um, yeah, I mean, if anyone interested in the energy field, I think there are a lot of different technologies within the scope of energy, on the hardware side, software side, services side. So I guess um, don't have your ideas or your interest narrowed down by maybe what you see in front of you, or your professor or peers, because everyone is probably used to their own things that they've been working with, but there's a lot to explore. So if you look up technologies in what's happening in Europe, or what's happening in Japan, or what's happening in Australia or the US, you'll see a lot of interesting things happening in different technologies. Um, so yeah, I would encourage everyone to like broaden their horizons and think out of the box, and don't treat energy as something just based on what is there in your courses and your electives and what your professors research on. They're obviously important things, but there are a lot more things that the education system does not necessarily teach us or expose us to. And I feel like with today's access to information, you have a powerful tool like ChatGPT nowadays. I think you can learn a lot more about things beyond what the courses at like IIT would teach you. In fact, most of my learnings were, I think, outside of the course. I think like Solar Decathlon helped me a lot to learn about practical implementations of some of the solar and like smart home technologies, which course doesn't teach you. So yeah, I'm not saying anything against the education system, but it's not as dynamic and as wide as what the internet or the world can offer you. So yeah, I would say try to explore that.
Yes, definitely. Learning outside the course is really important. So I'm sure everyone watching will be really grateful to get such deep insights into the energy sector and knowing the journey of a person who has been through this sector for 9 years. Thank you for being here, and thank you for joining our podcast.
Yeah, thank you so
Yeah,
much. And yes, we were so pleased to have you here. And thank you for those insights in the energy sector, for sharing your experience, for sharing your hostel days also. These things still happen.
Yeah.
And especially the advice you shared with us was really precious, and we'll like to implement in our future. And also, I think the audience will try to do that. Thank you so much.
yeah. Thank you for having me, and yeah, hope it was helpful.